I recently picked up this little beast of a camera right here, and I'm blown away by what this thing can do. So if you watch my videos, you know I shoot with an A7 III mainly, and a few days ago I was looking on Facebook Marketplace trying to find a B camera, just something really cheap that I could use on the studio and just for, you know, B-roll of that camera if I'm making videos about it and whatnot. So I was looking on Marketplace and kind of searching like A5000s, A5100s, you know, A6000s, that type of thing. And I was seeing some on there, they were still $300-400. There's an A6000 for, it's like $800, and I'm not about to spend $800 on a camera when I just bought that one for $2,000. So I was looking for something really cheap, so I just looked up Sony cameras, and this popped up, NEX-3. Now I looked at it and I was like, alright, that looks like a point and shoot, and I was like, well, wait a minute, let me click on this, check it out, and I realized that these are interchangeable lenses. They're E-mount lenses, and they're pretty much like the A6000 series, just a lot smaller, and they're a little older. I think this one came out in 2010. But the main thing that intrigued me was that it's interchangeable lens, so I can use my E-mount lenses on it. So I did some more research into it, and I really didn't find much on YouTube or anything about video for the NEX-3. I know there's a lot about the NEX-5 and like the 7s and 9s or whatever else there is, but I didn't see much about the NEX-3. And I wasn't surprised because it's such an old camera, and I'm sure most people didn't use it for video. But I figured I'm gonna go pick it up. It was 80 bucks. Well, I wanted 100, but I got it for 80. And picked it up. Came with a 2 gigabyte SD card, which I was kind of blown away when I saw that. I haven't seen a 2 gigabyte SD card since I was like 10. So yeah, picked this thing up right here for 80 bucks. Now before we get started into this video, I'm going to be mainly focusing on the video capabilities of this. I don't do much photography, nor am I a professional videographer, cinematographer, whatever. I just make videos on YouTube, and I like doing little edits and stuff. So I'm not going to be focusing on photography for this. If you're looking to purchase this for photography, or if your uncle's roommate's cousin was going to give this to you because he knew you liked pictures or something, just use it. I mean, it's interchangeable lens, so you can put old vintage lenses on it that are really cheap, and it shoots in RAW. I mean, it's going to be everything you need for photography. So if you're getting this for super cheap or you have a low budget, just get it. I mean, it's going to produce great images. So now that we're off of that, this is going to be focusing on just video stuff, video capabilities and whatnot of this camera. So let's get right into it. So as soon as I got home after buying this, the first thing I did was dive right into the settings to see what video capabilities it had, because I didn't look much into it before I bought it. I just kind of went and bought it. That's usually what I do. And I noticed a few things right off the bat. First things first, this camera only shoots in 720p at 30 frames a second. It can do less than 720p, I think it's 480p, but obviously you don't want to do that. The highest this will do is 720p at 30 frames a second, and it cannot do 24 frames a second. It can't do 60 frames a second. It'll only do 720p, 30 frames a second, which that is a pretty big downfall when I first saw that. I was hoping for at least 24 frames a second. I'm not too worried about 1080p or 4K or whatnot. I mean, this came out in 2010. It's almost a 10-year-old camera. When I saw that, I was like, alright, that's definitely a big downfall, because I shoot most of my videos in 24 frames a second. And this, I was gonna try to set this up maybe as a B camera over here on my studio or something like that. So 30 frames a second is a little different from my workflow, but obviously it's still useful. A lot of people do shoot in 30 frames a second anyways. And the 720p I'm not too worried about. I shoot in 1080p for most of my videos, and upscaling it to that, it's gonna lose a little bit of quality from 1080p, but I'm not too worried about it. 720p is still going to be fine for most things. Another thing is, this doesn't have S-Log or HLG or any of those picture profiles that the newer Sony cameras are going to have. So I turned the saturation, contrast, and sharpness all the way down in this just to get a more flat profile for color grading and color correction, as well as to get a little bit more dynamic range hopefully out of this camera. And that made it look a little bit better, a little bit more useful for post-production. And also the next thing I did right away before I started making videos, I took this kit lens off. This is a 18-55 3.5 to 5.6, just the basic kit lens. It doesn't look that good, especially on this older camera. So what I did is threw on a vintage lens, which I'll grab real quick. This right here is a Konica 50mm f1.7. This is an old vintage lens I actually found in my barn, and I got an adapter for the E-mount. So I threw this thing on and I was blown away when I recorded my first video with it. Coming from this kit lens and this old camera to just this f1.7 50mm lens, it's a huge difference. I'd definitely recommend picking up a cheap Canon FD or a conical lens like this that are for old film cameras, because these things are dirt cheap and they're so much better than just this kit lens that comes with these cameras. So I definitely recommend one of these if you're going to be filming a video. It doesn't have to be a 50mm, it could be a wider angle, it could be 300mm even, it could be anything. There's going to be a bunch of different focal lengths you can get, and these things are almost all of them are dirt cheap. So I definitely recommend picking up one of these if you're going to be using this for a video. It ups the quality a stupid amount, way more than being 1080p video ever could. So when I hit record for the first time, I realized something else, in that when you're shooting videos with this, it's only in auto mode. You can't change the shutter speed, you can't change the ISO, you can't change anything. It's completely automatic, and it's kind of weird because, you know, you're in picture mode usually, you can change all that, and you start videotaping and it just all disappears. You can't change any of that, it just does it all automatically. That's probably one of the biggest setbacks for this, because you always want to have the 180-degree shutter rule. You know, if you're shooting in 30 frames a second, which is what this does, you want to have a shutter speed of 60, which is going to be double, so it'd be 180-degree shutter rule. You can't do that. You can't change the ISO to keep it as low as possible, you know, to decrease the amount of noise. You can't do any of that. The one thing you can do though is with these old vintage manual lenses, you can change the f-stop to whatever you want to set it to, which that's a really good thing because you can always just set it to the brightest it can go, and that'll help keep the ISO down. But the shutter speed is going to be the big thing that I'm kind of worried about, because, you know, if it ups the shutter speed or lowers it a bunch, it's going to change depending on where you're looking at. If you're looking at a bright source, you know, it's going to make it look kind of weird. But we can get through that, and it still looks great. So I'm going to go ahead and throw this lens on right now, actually. So when you have an old metal vintage lens like this, it really makes it feel a lot heavier and a lot more stable when you're holding it to take videos. And it really feels good, actually. It's a big change from the stock. This is all plastic and whatnot. This thing's like lighter than a feather. So when you put this metal vintage old Konica lens on right here, it really makes it feel a lot more sturdy, a lot more stable for getting steady shots. I'd still recommend something to get steady shots, maybe a gimbal or a tripod or something like that, because it's such a small camera. You're gonna see every single shake, you know, especially if you drink like 4 cups of coffee like I did before this. I'm gonna go ahead and show some test footage with this lens right here. I'm probably gonna keep it stopped all the way open to 1.7, just so I can get the cleanest image, lowest ISO I can. So I'm gonna go ahead and play some test footage real quick. I'm gonna upscale it to 1080p from 720, and I am filming this in 24 frames a second, so I don't know how much that's going to change it, but most of these are going to be stable shots anyways, just in one spot. So anyways, enjoy the test footage. So what do you think? I think for $80, and a lot of times you can probably get this $40 on Craigslist, I bet. It is a fantastic camera to get started out. The only real issue is there's no mic input on it, so you can't attach like a mic that I'm using right here, like a Video Micro or one of the Rode microphones or a lav mic or anything like that. Anything with a 3.5mm jack, you can't plug into this. It does have an HDMI out, which is pretty cool. But yeah, no mic input, so audio is really going to be limited. I don't even use audio with this. I just, you know, like what I just did, just a little edit with some music. I mean, audio is not going to be a thing for this. More for just getting video. You know, you can record audio separate on your phone with a mic or with just an external recorder, and then just use this as scratchy audio, because it does have audio in it. It's not that good, but you can use it as scratch audio and then sync up the audio, and that'll be really good. Either way, there's not good audio in this, but for video, for a beginner, for 50, 80 bucks, whatever you get this for, slap a vintage lens on it with an adapter. It's gonna be fantastic for beginner use, and anything, even for just like a B camera, if you have an A6000 or something. Just a little B camera to get some extra, maybe an extra point of view for a video or whatever. It's gonna be fantastic. I definitely recommend picking it up. Don't let the price tag or the video quality 720p resolution, don't let any of that direct you away from it. Just get it, and you can do amazing things with it. Obviously, I'm not an expert. That was just some quick things I just did. If you're experienced and you want to learn and you know how to get the right shots, the right lighting, then this is going to be fantastic. It's going to be enough for what you need. Definitely recommend picking this up if you can, or if you're on a budget, or if you were just given it and you want to watch a video about how good it is. There you go. Use it, learn, get experience with it, and it can do amazing things. Anyways, stay tuned. I'm probably going to do a video comparing this to the A7 III, because I do have two of the pretty much same lenses, these 50mm vintage lenses, so I can compare those, see what the quality is different. So stay tuned for that, subscribe, and click the bell icon for notifications. Like this video if you liked it, and subscribe for future videos, comparing stuff, and whatever else I feel like doing. And I'll see you guys in the next one.